Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're talking F1 2020 My Team Career Mode and giving you some hot tips that I think will allow you guys to improve vastly in that area of the game. Now obviously the game isn't actually out yet, it's coming out on the 10th of July of course, but having played the F1 game by Codemasters for the last couple of years, especially the last two very consistently, getting through at least minimum 5 seasons of career mode, and also playing Motorsport Manager for the last 4 years since it came out in 2016, a very avid player of the Motorsport Manager game, and we've seen a lot of the mechanics, I guess, and the ideas have transitioned from PlaySports Motorsport Manager game to Codemasters F1 2020 My Team. So with those two kind of aspects of my gaming history in the last 2 to 4 years combined, I feel like I do have some insight into potentially what could be quite useful. So much like betting tips, don't take this as gospel, but it might help you out and it might be something you want to look into when you start off your My Team journey come July. It is, I think the technical term is, very, very warm. What's the temperature here? 30 degrees. Add in the PC, camera lights, what else? The fact I've closed the window, the doors closed, probably gonna feel a lot more than just 30, let's be real. So if I melt by the end of the video, that's why. But also, aside from me melting during recording this video, before we get into the tips, I want to let you guys know if you've not pre-ordered F1 2020 yet, I can get you 5% off if you pre-order it via the official F1 store. You might have seen pre-lockdown around the world, I did get affiliated with the official Formula 1 store, and a lot of you guys have actually been using my code, so really appreciate that, guys. But you can use that code to also pre-order the F1 game off the F1 store, so it's the same price as I've seen at other places like Amazon, but you can just get a further 5% off then using my code aarava5. Links in the top line of the description, so just to help you guys out and get 5% off there if you've not pre-ordered it already from another store, of course. So anyway, without further ado, let's dive into these tips. Number one is going to be developing your engine early on and focusing on the engine a little bit more than the aerodynamics and chassis when it comes to the performance of the actual car itself. We've seen from F1 2019 that the engine power is very important in the F1 game. Forget about what happens in real life. In the game, the engine power is very important. Countless times over seasons and years in the previous F1 game, the AI is so perfect when it comes to managing the engine in the race, with whether it be using rich mix or obviously ERS at the right time. So even more this year when we have the auto ERS, so it's kind of taken out of our hands a little bit, and also that means that fuel mixture is so much more important because you only have overtake mode, which obviously is useful, but it's like a curse button, so you can obviously strategically use it, but throughout the entire race, rich mix and the use of fuel is going to be way more important because that's still something you have complete control over compared to auto ERS. So you're going to want to make sure you actually focus on upgrades to help you out with using more rich mix in the races, and also just upgrading the engine power as a whole. As we've seen over the last 2 years or 3 years even since F1 2017, the engine power is so crucial. The AI can mince you on the straights with the slipstream that's in the game, which is slightly more powerful than in real life, which to be fair I'm not complaining at. I always think it's a nice thing. It kind of improves the overtaking, the kind of action you can get in an F1 race compared to in real life, but it also means that AI can be a little bit overpowered at times if you are not careful with not upgrading your engine enough. And I found against AI, you lose way more time in general off the exits of corners and down the straights than you ever do mid-corner. So i.e. if you were upgrading your car a lot in the chassis and aero department, yeah, you'd gain some time mid-corner on the entry and the braking and whatnot, but I feel like you will lose way more time if you didn't upgrade the engine power to get a great exit off a corner and then down the straight, obviously with DRS added in as well. Number two is making sure you actually prioritize and train your teammate driver up. Of course, My Team, you get to select your teammate early doors. Obviously, you may want to get rid of the kind of slower teammate you've had to pick due to budget and get a faster driver in later down the line. But if you do stick with one of your teammates for a long while, make sure you prioritize improving him, because of course, remember, compared to normal career mode, this is your team. So I feel like most people also care way more about the Constructors title as well as the Drivers. I personally have always only cared about the Drivers Championship when I've been doing career modes in the past, but whenever I've played Motorsport Manager, I've cared about the Constructors. My Team is this kind of happy blend, so you care about both. Now, of course, you could go ahead and win the Drivers Championship, I'm sure, on your own in a decent enough car, but if you haven't improved your teammate enough, maybe, and he's lagging behind, let's say you've not decided to buy one of the top teammates that are available, obviously your Hamiltons, Verstappens, Leclerc, whatever, you've gone for a lower down player, make sure you do train him up, which you can do to improve his stats. And it's one of the most unique things in the F1 game they've introduced is actually being able to change physically the stats of these drivers. So, use that new feature that's in the game, kind of, use it to your advantage and make sure you have a good backup teammate, basically. Because at the same time as well, you may like to sign one of the top guys as your teammate, but obviously that means that he's going to challenge you for the championship. Instead, you might opt for a kind of more equal teammate or a second driver teammate, which will always be slower than you, but still quick enough to get those points for the Constructors' Championship. Number three's tip is coming straight from my experience of Motorsport Manager, and a phrase that I've said many times playing that manager game is you've got to spend money to make money. It's a very well-known phrase in terms of business, in the business world. You've got to spend money to make money, but I feel like that's going to be true in my team. It was very true in Motorsport Manager. Of course, I know it's very different in terms of how the currency plays out, and you, the player, can make a massive difference on track. But we've even seen with the graphs that Codemasters have shown themselves in the My Team trailer, there was that one point where they spent a lot of money and the budget went right down to the wire, and then it shot back up after a period of time, I think a month or so. So don't be afraid to spend a lot of your money. Like, don't be afraid to be right on that line. I don't know if we can go negative and go into debt in My Team. In Motorsport Manager, you could go into debt. So literally sometimes, if you guys watch those videos, I would literally go into debt, spend money, upgrade things, get, upgrades I need on the car and whatnot. And then in the end, down the line, long term, that pay a dividend out of, being spiking back up because, I've met sponsor objectives, I've done better in the championship. So in the long term, I made way more money having spent that money early doors rather than being stingy and not spending as much money, keeping the balance kind of a little bit higher in my savings account, basically. So don't be afraid to go lower, even right to the edge, because, if it pays out, if you've made the right purchases, of course, if you've been smart with your money, then in theory, you should see the performance on track, or the rest of your facility to get the upgrades to see it on track, and down the line, eventually, you'll get that money back. So don't be afraid to spend money in the game. I know some people might be a little bit wary of being on a budget, because it's the first time we can do any of this in an F1 game, but having played a lot of manager games with F1, I would say, just like they do in real life, there's no way to not spend money in this sport. Number 4 is going to be improving your marketing department early doors and making sure that is one of the departments you're prioritizing, because from what I've seen in the game, in terms of what comes out of improving your marketing department is better sponsors, better activity management, and I reckon that's all going to pay out to give you more money, give you a better kind of management of that time between Grand Prix. We know there's that graph where there's an allocated time, essentially, of we can use between Grand Prix, and it sounds like having a better marketing department will allow us to maybe squeeze in driver PR things in a shorter span of time so we can have more time to improve the car elsewhere. And then also the biggest thing is better sponsors. At the end of the day, no matter how well you do on the track and how well you're driving, to improve the car, move it forward, move the team forward, especially in the early first or 2 seasons, you're going to need money, i.e. better sponsors. So improve that marketing department as much as you can early doors, even if it means you're neglecting other departments. I feel like the marketing department, I have a slight, hunch already that in this game, I think if you delve into that way more, you're going to get so much benefit down the line. Number 5, now this is going to shock a lot of you guys if you watch my previous F1 career modes, but I'm going to say improve durability. I know, it's crazy for me to say that, but improve durability. The reason why I'm saying this is the fact that this year we can see physically the bars of reliability on the R&D graph tells me maybe it may be even more crucial than ever this year. Obviously, it's important in the previous games, but I've always just gone with the method of I want a fast car, don't mind if it breaks down or has issues or I have to take penalties, I can just come back through. But now, with you and your teammate having to do well, like I said, for the Constructors' Championship, you can't afford your teammate to always have penalties towards the end of the season when you maybe can make your way through. He's an AI car. Unfortunately, sometimes the AI will get stuck in traffic, so you don't want him to have too many penalties as we've gone through this season. And like I said, I think the fact that they now show you the durability just gives me a little hunch that it might be more crucial than ever this year in terms of, the other AI teams, they're going to have less reliability issues compared to yours, because you're making a team from the ground up. Expecting the reliability to be a little bit lower for our car specifically, maybe compared to the other AI teams. I could be wrong, but I think the reason why they've shown us those bars now in the R&D prestige charts because it's way more important potentially, or could be more important. Obviously, there's an asterisk to this, but I think number 5, that's why I want to put that in terms of, I think it's going to be a little bit more important. Number 6 is going to be, make sure you keep all your departments' morale as high as possible. This is something that I historically have not cared about too much and have just kind of taken the R&D failures on the chin. But now, because my team is a long-term project, you know, you're talking at least minimum right at the end of season 2 into 3 minimum to get the car to a point where it can maybe win a championship. I hope, at least in terms of progression. It's a long-term plan compared to maybe trying to win, you know, the championship in 1 year in career mode. So department morale is going to be very important, and it seems like they're highlighting it a lot more in the menus from what we've seen from the My Team trailer. So I think keeping those department morales as high as possible will allow you to have a steady stream of upgrades, especially early days when you'll need to catch up to obviously the mid-pack, first of all, to even get some points in the championship. Keeping steady upgrades, maybe less upgrades, obviously less major ones, but steadier upgrades instead of this kind of, you know, yo-yo and roller coaster effect of having some upgrades and then not having any for like 3 races because you planned some but then they failed on, you know, when they're meant to be delivered in 2 races time. So make sure you keep the department morale as high as possible to make sure you're eliminating failures, and obviously that could go in parcel with also spending money on the quality control to make sure the upgrades don't fail, but morale will also come into that, and I feel like that's an easier thing to do. The quality control will cost a lot of money and R&D points, whereas the morale may not, by just simply making sure you're saying the right things in interviews. And finally, number 7, at the start of the season and also throughout, make sure you go for sponsors where you can actually get the goals they're trying to set, because then you'll actually get the bonuses. It may be very, very tempting to go for the big cash money payout straight off the bat, but from Motorsport Manager, I've seen it in the past where we've missed out on actually quite a lot of money where we've not completed the bonuses. So obviously be ambitious in what you think you can do. Obviously, you know your performance versus the AI level you're playing at, so you know what you can do. Just make sure you're not overreaching and being too ambitious, because then that will come back to bite you if you can't get those bonuses and that extra money, which will come in handy, you know, at the start and towards the end, I'm sure, when you're battling for the championship against the top teams. So those are my 7 hot tips for F1 2020 My Team career. I've got a bonus one, which is kind of number 8, but it's like a bonus one. And at the end of the day, I've said all of this stuff. At the end of the day, just make sure you enjoy the game and just go and do what you want as well. You know, I think there'll be a little trap that people fall into, maybe going for the more logical, you know, choice when it comes to the engine supplier, let's say at the start of the career mode, or, you know, sponsors, you know, maybe, oh, okay, that one's definitely going to give me the best money, you know, the best bonuses. At the end of the day, though, you know, have some fun with it. It's your team, you know, you're going to have to look at the car for every single race. So if you like the look of a sponsor logo a little bit more than another and it's giving you less money, yeah, just once in a while, it might be worthwhile just to go for it, just to make your car look more aesthetically pleasing. Same with the engine, you know, you might prefer a certain engine sound. You know, you're going to have to listen to that engine sound every single lap of every single race. So, yeah, there might be more logical, you know, choices maybe to make, a la, you know, Ferrari and Mercedes. But if you love the Honda sound or you love the Renault sound, then just go for it. Make sure you enjoy the game. Obviously, it's such a unique game mode we're getting. There's so many things to delve into, and obviously you can take it proper seriously and nerdy, which I feel like maybe I will, but at the same time I'm also going to make sure that I also try and enjoy it and do what I just think looks sick. Like, I want to make a cool looking car, I want to have a good sounding car as well, and in terms of the way I run the team, just have a bit of fun with it and not be too serious. So that's just a little bonus. Just make sure you have fun with it, guys, and just pick what you want sometimes as well. So guys, those are my hot tips then, like I said, for F1 2020 My Team. I've just about survived this video and not melted completely there, but definitely is getting very warm. The fan here on my right's been a lifesaver. I'm going to wrap up this video very, very quickly. So guys, if you did enjoy the video, then be sure to smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Do you agree with most of those tips? Do you disagree quite strongly about one? Potentially you have a different theory of the way to go about things, or maybe you're just better at manager games than I ever was in Motorsport Manager, of course. Let me know in the comments below. If you're new around here and you found that helpful, then do get subscribed for more weekly Formula 1 content, and of course, F1 My Team when it comes out, when the game comes out in July. Till then, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.